Leland Miller. He's the CEO and co-founder of China Beige Book International, an economic forecasting firm focused on China. Welcome to you. I just want to begin by talking about what we've seen in the Asia markets this morning. Asia stocks experiencing their worst drop in decades. I think we can have another look at the markets here. The Hang Seng in particular, the biggest one-day drop since 1997. That's down by 13%. Can you just explain why that in particular that drop has been so dramatic?
Well, if the tariff rates that were announced stay and have become permanent, then it would restructure the entire global economy and all supply chains as we currently know it. So I think that the reaction by markets is a reflection of the fact that there's great ambiguity over what Trump wants to do with this plan, but also how far he will push it, how much his administration wants to continue to push this despite financial markets dropping before he starts switching into deal-making mode.
We had a bit of a significant moment a few hours ago where JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon released a statement saying that the risk of inflation is real and, quote, if the Western world's military and economic alliances were to fragment, America itself would inevitably weaken over time. Do you agree with that assessment that this tariff move could lead to the whole world order here being upended?
Well, look, there are orderly ways to do tariffs, and there's less orderly ways to do tariffs. I don't think you have to guess which one this is. What the Trump administration wants is a paradigm shift on global economic relationships. They want to bring manufacturing home. They want to eliminate the trade deficit, both bilaterally and multilateral, because they see it as a national security crisis. The problem is that if you don't want prices to rise, then you have to have import substitutability. You have to be looking at which supply chain makes sense. If you want to steer things away from China because you're worried about the China threat, then you have to adjust policy in that way. There doesn't seem to be a grand thesis behind what's happening right now beyond the fact that tariffs are going to be very, very high, and hopefully everything will come back this way. So I think that what they have to do is they have to have more of a thematic approach to this and explain what they're trying to do. Well, we're going to see tariff rates brought down quite substantially from here. The question is what is the timeline for doing this? How long will the Trump administration hold tight?
So I just have to pick up there because you said you expect that we are going to see tariffs dropping. So is it your view that these initial tariffs are not going to stick? And if they don't, how quickly will markets correct?
Well, look, I think that people are approaching this too binary. They're either saying that we're going to have these enormous tariff rates that were set extraordinarily and shockingly high in order to allow for negotiation that would still keep them down at a high level even after the negotiation. Or you're just going to have Trump say, oops, I made a mistake, and you're going to go back to the status quo ante. Neither of those are likely. What you're going to likely see is a move towards foreign countries, which have already been contacting the U.S. government saying, we want to negotiate things down. They're going to negotiate things down, but they're not going to get rid of tariffs. They're just going to bring them down from the level they're here. So what you're going to see over the coming weeks, months, could be days, is a change in the levels that we're seeing right now, so that we're bringing the levels down. They're becoming a little bit more sensical. But at the same time, there will be a new regime based around the fact that more tariffs will be placed by the United States and around the world. So we're not going back to the old ways, but we're not going to stay at here. Very unlikely we stay at these levels.
And I just want to get your assessment as we consider those words of Jamie Dimon about the possibility of recession and the idea that this is going to lead to job losses, because that is the margin on which the Fed will be looking at this and basing any moves, isn't it?
Well, I think people are looking at the Fed as too important a factor in all of this. The issue here in terms of recession is, even if this is a successful tariff program, you can't bring manufacturing back overnight. So even if everything is done well, you can't bring it back overnight, and some of it's going to have to go to Mexico and Canada because of differences in production. So there's a question that if you're gumming up world trade right now and you're looking down the road and you're trying to have a long-term view and bring manufacturing home, I think they do have that long-term view. I'm not sure what their short-term and medium-term pain tolerance, though, is in terms of this, because you can't just snap your finger and change the global regime. Supply chains have to shift. Global trade has to move, and so we're in the position where it can't even move yet because people aren't sure where the rates are going to settle. So there needs to be a lot more coming from the administration in order for folks to sort of rejigger themselves to the new regime.
Howard Lutnick has been very vocal over the weekend. He brought up one specific example among this long list of tariffs. So I just want to have a listen to what he had to say on CBS.
It's not just tariffs. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, Vietnam said they'd like to be 0-0. Remember, Vietnam sends us $120 billion worth of goods every year.
Yes,
and we send them about $12 billion. Wait, we send them $12 billion. So it's not the tariffs. It has nothing to do with tariffs. If they went to 0-0, they would go to $200 billion with us. We need to stop the ripoff.
I mean, Vietnam, of course, one of the countries really feeling the pain of these tariffs. Many would say unfairly so. Can you just help us explain why the trade deficit between countries like Vietnam and the US are not really easily addressed by tariffs, even steep ones like this?
Well, I think Vietnam's a great place to start, because the entire reason that the Vietnam trade deficit has skyrocketed in the last few years is that we put tariffs on China and we sort of reroute trade through other countries. Part of that was other folks not wanting to produce in China because the tariffs moved the cost of production too high. Some of it was China rerouting things, their own factories, transshipment, whatever it might be, through Vietnam. So Vietnam, other countries in Southeast Asia became very popular destinations and intermediary points for foreign trade. So part of the problem with having a tariff shifting regime is you have to always look out for the transshipment angle. Otherwise, folks will just play whack-a-mole and find the lowest tariff rate. This is why whatever the current regime, whatever Trump is doing right now, has to settle in a way that not only does the supply chain settle and you see the certainty, but you're also avoiding transshipment from countries you don't want. If your if your priority is to make sure that we're not increasing our trade deficit with China, then you have to make sure that China can't either directly ship or transship through a third-party country. This takes a lot of stage managing and sequencing.
All right, Leland Miller, there's a lot to unpack there, but we appreciate your time and your thoughts. Thank you.